This will be a day long remembered. Now I am the master.
Welcome to another episode of Legends and Theories. And welcome to my review of the Star Wars novel X-Wing Wraith Squadron. This is the fifth novel in the X-Wing series, and it was really a good book, but just wasn't as good as the first four. Honestly, I think that although the new author here does do a good job, it is weakened by the fact that it introduces almost a full new cast of characters and generally doesn't do anything with Rogue Squadron besides them being in the background. And while Wraith Squadron was interesting enough, I was a little more interested in Rogue Squadron, and it was just a thing that I think that could have been done better. Maybe have both in this, but still, it was a really solid story. I'm not really complaining, it's just one thing that I didn't love as much and was something that could have been a little more interesting, but it was still interesting characters. I know they are used in other projects, mainly references, since Rogue Squadron is the big one. And from what I could tell, is the next ones go similar to it. And on a slightly related note, if you do enjoy the X-Wing series and have been listening to some of the stuff that's been released on Audible from these old books, which is I'm listening to these because it's just way more convenient to my time, so I don't have to just read a book because it's a lot harder to find time to do that. The book I Jedi releases today. I am not sponsored or anything. I'm just really excited to read that, and we'll be listening to the audiobook as I get ready for work and during part of my break before I start the next book in the New Jedi Order, since I'll just be listening to that while I have my lunch. And that's just a convenient way to read, is to take it during your breaks. But that's just a small suggestion, and let's go back to this review. As I said, this was a really interesting one. It was cool with their espionage missions for Wedge to want to have a more covert team that goes undercover and is able to be able to sabotage and then think as a fighter squadron, kind of being the opposite of Rogue Squadron, which is far more of a starfighter squadron, and then followed by them being on the ground operatives. While they were operatives on the ground, especially when they helped liberate Coruscant from the Empire, they are far more prominent in their X-Wing role and will usually default to that skill. And that's the reason they set up Wraith Squadron. And that all makes sense, but just as I said, I really wish that it was just a little bit more Rogue Squadron because I really started to like those characters, and just being part of the same series, it just feels so weird to go and, with the exception really of Wedge, go focus on a completely new cast of characters. But they were all still really interesting. It was really enjoyable to go through this and see them impersonating the Imperials and pulling out this giant ruse to be able to take down some of Warlord Zinj's forces. Now, it is not fully known to me which is the correct pronunciation, because basically everyone I hear talking about on YouTube says Zinj, while the novel says Zinja. And while I do think both could be valid, I'm far more used to hearing it as Zinj, so that's how I will be pronouncing it. Unless the question I just left on a Star Wars video tells me that they've been making a mistake for a while, but that really won't apply here. I just acknowledge I do know there's a difference in pronunciation. I'll use that again in my review of the Courtship of Princess Leia in a few days. But everything with that was interesting. Them having to use the different skills of the fighter pilots to be able to go and impersonate the Imperials, fly TIE fighters, and go on different missions. And it was interesting to see them have to pretend to be the bad guys and then set up the people they just helped with a trap from the New Republic. But yeah, honestly, overall, this is just a really solid novel. As I said, I didn't like it as much as any of the Rogue Squadron ones before, where Rogue Squadron was the focus. So I really did enjoy this one, and I'm looking forward to the next one that releases on Audible, although technically I can get the book and read the rest of them. I'm still in the middle of the New Jedi Order, and it's just more convenient for me to be able to listen to an audiobook, as I said. Because honestly, if I did have the time, I would read all of these physically, but I just really don't have the time to do that. And I'm usually just using my breaks at work, and if I ever go on a longer car ride, to be able to read. But honestly, I don't know what you think about this book. I do know that, from what I've seen online, there are different thoughts on it. Most people agree with me that it's interesting looking at Wraith Squadron, but from what I saw, there is two different opinions where people do like the book, and there are ones that just hate the book completely. But I fall into more I enjoyed it, it's just not as good as the first few. But honestly, I want to know what you think. Please let me know in the comments, and also in the next episode of Legends and Theories. Thank you for watching this episode of Legends and Theories. Please subscribe, like the video, share the video, leave a comment, check out the video on screen, and may the Force be with you.